Hi, my name is Karina, and I'm going to be talking about reflection strategies that educators can utilize when presenting new topics, challenging topics to their students, especially as it relates to racism. Some of the strategies that I learned from Becoming a Critically Reflective Teacher by Stephen Brookfield has to do with engaging students in conversations where you're having them critically think, critically reflect, have critical curiosity about a subject matter that is difficult and can be challenging. And one of the strategies that I really liked was the idea of a brave space. I think really setting the tone for having reflective conversations is really important, in outlining certain guidelines to have these conversations, especially when the student demographics vary, right? It's not homogeneous. So I think that would be really important. I think outlining and role modeling what those guidelines are will be really important as the facilitator, as the educator in those instances. So I think that one of the guidelines that I think would be really effective is the use of I statements, not being accusatory, those types of things. And I think the role modeling piece could be done with one of the classroom opportunities before engaging in these discussions. One of the class sessions, I would have maybe a group of other facilitators and educators come in, and we would role model discussion, on a difficult topic. Race. I think race is a difficult topic. Racism is a difficult topic. No matter what age you are, what professional position you're in. So, I think that would be the strategy I'd utilize. We would role model what it's like to be in a brave space and have those types of conversations. One thing that I think would be really interesting would be to incorporate like a book about race, and have students engage in perspective taking by reading someone's personal account of their experiences, especially as a person from the BIPOC community. One of the books that I think would be really meaningful is a book called I'm Still Here by Austin Channing Brown. She is a Christian, so this would, definitely tie in with if I were working for an institution that was faith-based. And I think this is a great read. It really allows the reader to understand what it's like to be a person of color, and be part of a marginalized group, and those experiences of being a professional in a culture that is predominantly white. And so it's a very interesting read. So, I would like to have my students read that book, and then we would engage in critical, reflective conversation through a brave space. And so another strategy that I would utilize to ensure that everyone has a voice, because I know that there are those individuals who do like to talk, right? And sometimes they can dominate the conversation. So I like the idea of using a strategy called Circle of Voices, where essentially each student is given a certain amount of time to speak and provide their thoughts. It's completely uninterrupted. And so the students have to actively listen, which I think is a great practice for students and just people in general to learn. It's about being empathetic, right? Trying to understand, take on that perspective. So I think having students practice active listening, and allowing students to have some time to speak, right? And speak their truth in a way that is within the guidelines that have been outlined, I think would be really a productive conversation that would benefit students tremendously. The intended outcomes of these conversations is really to help students not be afraid and shy away from difficult conversations. And I also want to challenge them personally, and get them to start to critically evaluate the frameworks in which they grew up in, the ideologies maybe that that are so prevalent in our culture here in America, and just starting to do that deconstructive work so that they grow and gain new perspectives. So those would be my intended outcomes. And in addition to that, I think it's going to teach them great communication skills, right? To be able to have difficult conversations, because I think that that's a huge part of being a professional, right? And the active listening piece, especially if we're like healthcare professionals, it's important to engage in active listening and reflective listening, because the care that we provide to our patients should be empathetic. So those would be the benefits I feel with having these brave spaces with guidelines outlined on how to communicate and express oneself, and also utilizing that strategy of the circle of voices so everyone has time to speak. So what effect would suggest it have on the student's capacity for learning? So I think that, this would really, again, impact my students to start to critically think, to have that curiosity, to work on their empathy, so that they can gain that skill of perspective taking, to really step outside themselves. So I really think it's just gonna overall challenge them, and so I think that that's really gonna help increase their capacity to learn and engage in new ideas. So thanks for listening. I hope this was informative.